Hello, welcome to another episode of Move It or Lose It. Today, like I always say, I'm very excited about our guest. So if you know anything about MS and anything in the MS world, you know this couple. They are an amazing couple who have MS together. And if you know them, Dan and Jennifer, they're a couple that takes on MS, and they truly do. So wait till you hear this story. And I'm very excited to introduce Dan and Jennifer. Welcome to Move It or Lose It.
Kathy, thank you so much for having us. I'm excited. I'm speaking for her too, but yes, we're so excited.
We're both excited.
It's okay because she answered all the questions
Right.
in the questionnaire, so it's okay.
Yes. So now I feel that my work is done, and Dan,
Yeah,
you go ahead.
exactly.
Okay, do you need to take a break then?
Sure.
So it's been, we were able to do a podcast together, which was fun. And then we realized how dumb we really are, that we both live near each other. And we're like, what? And all I knew is of you, and you knew of me, but that's it. So, but now we're best friends, and we're going to lunch this week, and we're going to do aerobics together. We're going to go clubbing it.
Your Christmas card is in the mail.
Woo! Thank you.
Yeah.
So it'll be all fun now. So a lot of people have talked about you guys, and I've heard once I said I was doing an interview with you, they were like, oh, you love them. I already do. We're best friends now. But really excited just to bring this out to the people who don't know you, and my audience who may not know who you guys are, and just how special and the things that you guys do for the MS community, and the very many, just the advocating that you've done from the beginning. And so we're going to take the audience back to when you first met. So you both have multiple sclerosis. And now I've had some funny stories. Now, one of the girls that I used to get my infusions with, she actually met her husband they didn't know each other had MS. So they were on a blind date. And so then they had dated 3 more times. And then they knew, like, okay, one of us has to break the ice. One of us has to say something. And so they have a very funny sense of humor, and they tried to guess what it was. And so she just said, I'm actually a male. And so they laughed. And so finally it came out, and I think she said it first, and he said, no, you don't. That's my line. That's what I'm supposed to say.
Okay.
So they're married now with a little baby. Well, now he's not a little baby anymore, but just, I think it's very hopeful for those who are, when I work with the women and do the women's support group, and men too, that feel like there's just no way. There's no way that I will meet that person. So you guys are just a testimony of it's, you never know. You just don't know.
No. And that's the truth, Kathy. And I don't know if you can tell, but I'm a wheelchair user. So I had been diagnosed 5 years before I met Dan. And I stopped walking as if I had a choice, but I stopped walking in May of 2002, and Dan and I met in September. So not only did we have the mutual multiple sclerosis, but he had to, like a woman in a wheelchair. So that, that was where I thought, oh, it's over for me. I'm in a chair.
Sure.
And I've never known Jennifer to walk. I mean, we actually met at an MS event.
Okay.
And I think it's just something where you fall in love with the person, right. And it's just like and I think maybe that's something where when you're living with MS, you just like, it makes it so much, I don't understand what I mean. It makes you so much, makes it so much easier to not notice the wheelchair, the assistive devices, right. Because it's like, because that's just part of who, that's just a person, it's like, I wear glasses,
right?
You just, that get to a point where that's just part of who you are. And so.
Exactly. I love that. So Jennifer, does that make you feel better? Does he have to still let you know that? Are there times that you still feel like, I still feel like I'm not enough. I still feel like if I could do this.
There are moments, and I imagine Dan has those moments because he has MS, and
Mhm.
you, Kathy, probably have them, and
Oh,
everyone
yeah,
in your community has them.
sure.
And there are moments, and it's so silly, where I would love to walk holding his hand, or just, when I have to ask him for umpteen favors. Oh, would you
Yes.
grab this for me, or would you do this for me? And there are times where I wish I was more able to do that. But I think just this weekend, we had that conversation, and he said, I knew what I was getting into when I
Yeah.
married you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, so much of what we have, we as far as people living
Right.
with multiple sclerosis, the thing I always feel is like we don't hold the market on a lot of this stuff. I mean, so whether or not you have MS, even people without MS in married relationships have these questions. I don't know if I'm doing enough. I know.
Right.
And as far as like I always tell Jennifer, for 17 years of marriage and however many years of dating, it's like chivalry isn't dead. And it's just
Yes.
like, you just think about these are things that I would do for her, whether she had MS or not, because I
Yeah.
think, and that's probably the beauty of a good relationship is I
Yeah.
still feel like I'm trying to win her over. And so I mean, you do that. And so I think
Right.
so that's just part of who we
Yeah.
are.
I love that. That's beautiful. That's well said. So I'm going to take us back a little bit now. So tell me what life was like. You guys can both go separate before MS became our best friend. So before that all happened, what was life like before? Whoever wants to go first.
You first.
See, she lets me do the difficult ones. I mean, life before MS, I mean, um, I was doing my thing, I was working, I was editor of Catholic Weekly newspaper in Saginaw. So I was commuting over an hour a day just to go to work. And I mean, you're just living life. I mean, I
Right.
was playing pickup basketball on the weekends, you just hang out, you're drinking beer, going out with friends,
Right.
just living life. I mean, I don't know if I had goals. I mean, I was really consumed with my job, and so that
Right.
was my priority and stuff. And so, but yeah, then just you start having numbness and thinking that it was because of weekend athlete syndrome
Sure.
and
Yeah.
stuff, and then you just realize that you go through the testing. So I mean, I was, yeah, just living
And
it.
how old were you, Dan, when you were
I
diagnosed?
I was 27 when I was
Okay.
diagnosed,
Yeah. So you're about
and
my age that's when I was diagnosed,
okay, yep,
28.
okay, yeah, and so I was, yeah, it's just like and it's almost like you remember, but you don't remember what life was
Yeah.
like because that was like 27, and I had, been at the Catholic Weekly, and I'd been there for a couple years, and I was,
Mhm.
it was a really good job. I really enjoyed
Yeah.
doing that. But then, and I had just accepted a new job at Central Michigan University here in Mount
Uh,
Pleasant. And that's just when everything changed,
yeah.
because boom, you have multiple sclerosis. What's this life look like?
Right.
So,
Right.
so what about you?
I was diagnosed 8 days after I turned 23.
Wow.
So I had graduated from college. I went to the University of Michigan Flint and got my
Go
first,
blue.
yes, go blue, got my first grown-up job, and I was working and had some numbness in my hands and feet that my doctor could explain away. But then when my eye wouldn't move,
Uh,
the doctor couldn't explain that away. And that's when I saw an ophthalmologist who said that he thought it looked like multiple sclerosis. And back in 1997, when I was diagnosed, I had this spinal tap
yeah.
and met a neurologist who said, indeed, you have multiple sclerosis. So life up until that point, I just really remember good times of
Yeah.
debauchery and craziness,
Yeah.
college student. And
Sure.
then boom, multiple sclerosis. So like Dan, I don't really remember
Right.
much where I'm
Now,
at.
Jennifer, did you have anyone in your family that had it?
I did not know when I was diagnosed. I did not know that I had family members that had it.
Okay.
But as after my diagnosis, my grandmother, keep in mind this was a long time ago, she had
Sure.
a doctor after she gave birth to my uncle who said, it looks like you have multiple sclerosis because my grandmother lost the control and feeling on the left side of her body. But that was at a different time where
Right.
medication wasn't available or MRI and CT scan. So my
Right.
grandma just persevered and it never really impacted her life.
Wow. So then you were diagnosed then. So the two Medicaid, was it beta-seron that you were on, or did you start with Copaxone?
That's funny. I started with Avonex.
Avonex, okay.
Once a week.
Yeah.
Granted, it was intermuscular, but
Right.
started with Avonex, and then I went to beta-seron, and then I went to Copaxone.
Oh, so you did all three.
I
Okay.
did all three, and then after Copaxone and I started to worsen, that's when I started Navandrone,
Okay.
drug that is not used anymore. But
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't remember that one.
yeah, it was like an intravenous, it was
Okay.
an IV that you couldn't do. It doesn't exist anymore.
Uh,
It really made a difference for me. I didn't get better, but I stopped getting worse.
okay. Interesting.
And that's right around that time, that's when I met Dan.
Okay. And so from there, then talk to me about, so you guys met each other and then you started obviously dating. So then when did you decide, okay, this is the law, this is what we have. And you both went to Central to do, wait, I'm going far ahead now. So skip that. Sorry. So then you decided that you were going to get married, and then getting married. We're just forwarding a little bit. So dating and then getting married. And then what made you decide that, okay, we've got this, but we want to start advocating for this? Because that was back in the day when I remember not snail mail for everything for the MS Society, and doing some things a little bit in the, the MS clinic I was at was the Mind Clinic in Farmington Hills.
Right.
And it wasn't too much that longer that I had started there because I really, really fell in love with Dr. Howard Rossman. And I was just really, really enjoyed him as my neurologist. And so at that time, there wasn't a lot. I helped with like a support group, helped some newly diagnosed. Other than that, with my kids being young, I didn't do a lot of advocating, and I didn't discuss it a lot because afraid of losing my job, afraid of losing my kids. There was a lot of fear in advocating. So when did you guys start doing that?
I think after I was diagnosed, I started an MS self-help group down in Alma because that's where I lived, or I was living here in Mount Pleasant, but I was down in Alma with this self-help group. And then that just sort of started, but I really think the advocacy for us started after we got married, because when we got married, part of what made our marriage doable, or something where we're like, we can move forward with this, because we're thinking, how would I be able to keep working and then have Jennifer be able to be at home by herself? And that's where we learned about the My Choice Medicaid waiver program, because Jennifer had, am I telling this story right? But she learned about that from her physical therapist, occupational therapist down where she was living with her family. And we learned then that she could have 35 hours of care every day during the work week that would be there to help with activities of daily living while I worked. And so that made our life doable. And so then with that, we started advocating with the area agency on aging down in Lansing for funding for the My Choice program, because that's what
Okay.
keeps people in their homes. And so
Right.
that's where we caught the advocacy bug. And I don't know if you remember Ruth Linneman with the MS Society, and she was big in
Yeah.
advocacy, and we got to be good friends with Ruth. And she's like, you're
Okay.
doing all this advocacy already. Why not get involved with the MS Society and its
Right.
advocacy? And then it's like, once you start doing that and advocating for yourself,
Right.
it's just like, it's contagious,
Yeah.
and so we just started doing. And I think the day I was diagnosed with MS on Valentine's Day of 2000,
Right.
and I just started working at Central. And so then I'm freaked out, that time between there of like do you tell your boss? And then I thought,
Right.
it's a public educational institution. I'm just going all in. And so I told my boss the
You
very next
did.
day, I just said, Karen or Linda, I was
Mhm.
diagnosed with MS, freaked out about it. And after I gave my whole spiel, she just says, well, what can we do to help? And so it's like from there, it's just like everything at the university, I was like an open book, and I was just became a
Wow.
huge MS advocate and
Yeah.
speaking and talking about it just to help other people, because it's like, I'm a 27-year-old man,
Sure.
and granted, then you think of like the MS breakdown where X amount, like 70%, 66% are women,
Right.
then there are men. And I wanted to be out there to just show that, men, when they have MS, and you
Right.
can still work and you can still do this. And
Right.
so I wanted to be there and be the voice that for other people that I didn't
Yeah.
have as a man living with MS.
Yeah.
And then marry her, and then we're just
Yeah.
like, and she was involved with the MS Society, and we just started going like crazy.
That's awesome. So the first thing you guys did with the MS Society is what? Where did you begin with them?
Well, we both were support group leaders. I
Uh,
lived in the Flint area at the
uh,
time. And so I was leading a support group, and Dan led a support group. And then we got involved with walk teams, and when we met each other. And then, as Dan mentioned, I got involved with advocacy because of the Medicaid waiver program.
mhm.
And it just snowballed. You start a little ways in, and the next thing you know, you're doing so much. And the society, the National MS Society, is really good about informing you about the
Yes.
issues that are relevant to us,
Right.
with action alerts. And now with that, with technology, we get
Yeah.
so much information. It's really easy and it's very accessible.
Mhm.
And so you dip your toe in the advocacy pool, and the next thing you know, you're all in.
Absolutely. And especially now, there's so many things for each of us to be able to do that you're right. It's just this like well of things that I believe that all of us can do something. And because there are so many opportunities, whether you're very, chatty like me, or whether you are more behind the scenes. There's so many things that are available for us to do that,
And I'm sorry. It's just so empowering, Kathy. It
yes,
makes you, this stupid disease tries and makes you feel weak and
right.
tries to knock you down. And you can just, with a little stroke of your pen or touch of a keyboard, feel powerful. You can
Yes.
talk with your elected officials. You can get your
Yes.
voice out there. And I think
Yeah.
that is one of the biggest reasons we did this. It's just
100%. It is a big thing to know that your voice matters. Like, we may be down, we may have this illness, we may have this disease but it doesn't mean that we're not valuable. And I think that's a tough part in our society, because it still looks at us like, get out of the way, you're in our way. But we know more than that. And I think we'll get to this later, but the patient voices and our voices getting louder, and our voices hearing us more, not just louder, but more of us speaking out and saying, this is what you need to understand. And I'm always stunned by seeing someone and saying, you know, I have multiple sclerosis and they know nothing. And I'm like, so it is, it just, you know, I just realized we still have so much more to do, so much more, because so many still don't know what this disease is. So we've got a lot to do. So moving forward, then you guys went to, you met an NMSS program called Finding Your Buried Treasure, and that was in Frankenmuth. So talk to me about that. That was in 2002.
Yes. And just like I was a program organizer, and it was a program that was intended to help women reclaim the hopes and the dreams that they'd put on hold after getting their MS diagnosis. And lo and behold, men started registering for this program. And Dan was one of the men who he was there.
Well, and I
you
always
look like you're about to defend yourself. So go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'm here. Well, because I mean, it was something where it sounded like a great program. And
right.
the reality is somebody forgot to put on the flyer that this was intended for women only.
Yeah.
And so what had happened is they started to get men registering for it.
Right.
I wasn't one of them to start. I mean, I mean, it was in Frankenmuth on a weekend, and that's like,
right.
you know, an hour and 20 minutes away from here. And I'm like, well, but I had someone with the MS Society because they needed more men to show up now. And so then she was just like, you're a self-help group leader.
Sure.
Would you be interested in going? And I'm like, sure, I would go down there. So I went. And when I got there, the manager who invited me to come there, I'm talking to her at the registration table. And she was the one that said, why don't you go sit over at that table? Because that's Jennifer's table and she's leading discussion. And you're both younger and have MS, so you might have some things to talk about. And then, you know,
and that's the fire's lit. And
exactly. Yes.
Yeah,
so, I mean, and so when it was done, I mean, it was just like getting her contact information. So it wasn't like another MS event before I at least be able to connect with her. And then, you know, emails led to phone calls, and that led to dating and, you know, me making trips down to her parents' house on the weekends. And, you know, that was it.
Yeah. Love that. That's awesome. So then from there, did you guys then discuss, like, now we want to advocate, we want to do this? Did you kind of get excited about what you could see you both doing, or how did that go from there?
Honestly, Kathy, it was fear. I mean, not fear, but excitement. You know, my life is going to change dramatically again. You know, I was diagnosed with MS. Boom, that's a change. Then I meet the man of my dreams and I marry him, and I'm moving almost 2 hours away from where I grew up, and I'm away from my family, and I'm away from my support system. So it was just, fortunately, we were able to find like support through the waiver program, and that's when advocacy started. It was like Dan was working during the day and I was keeping busy doing things around the house, but it was a natural fit to want to get involved. And to meet other people in this area that didn't have the voice, that didn't have the opportunity to speak up, that weren't chatties like Dan and I that wanted to share our story. So I think that was a natural fit for advocacy for us.
And I think just that, you know, that I write for a living. And so after we got married, it was like a good friend of ours and coworker. And she's just like, you guys need to start a blog, you know, back in the, you know, 95. Yeah. And so it's just like or 2005.
Yeah. I was going to say, gotcha.
I was thinking when I was diagnosed, but it was like, you need to start a blog. And so I think it was then you had the platform, you had the writing, and we were doing that, talking about life with MS. And then all of a sudden, well, now we're doing advocacy. We can write about this and encourage people and drive people to get involved. And so I think just the platform and everything. So what I mean, it is just like the snowball effect where you just pick and choose, and all of a sudden you're involved in everything and you're enjoying it. this,
And I think the blogging is so, I mean, I get very jealous because with me, I'm not able, I think that because I have the rheumatoid as well, the writing is really difficult for me. And so I can't write, and Suri just hates me. And I try to do the memos. I'm like, well, this isn't working. I need to come up with something. Somebody needs to come up with something for me to do this. But there's so many ideas I have, and I'll try to write it or, type it out. And it just, my hands only work so long, and then it just doesn't work. But I think there's such a impact when we blog, because it's not incredibly long, but there's so much depth to reading someone's story that connects with you. And, you find that person who's blogging, and it's like, ooh, that connects with what I'm going through, what the emotions I have. And so I think it's just really neat that you started that, but you're still doing it. I think is really neat. Now, do you guys blog together or separate?
It depends. I think that it's a lot of emotion and honesty that goes into blogging and to writing of any form. And Dan's a very good writer, and I think it's his forte. And so sometimes I'll get frustrated quickly.
Yeah.
Being, how MS is, where I will just be, I can't match up to your level, or if I don't want to talk about something, or if he doesn't want to talk about something.
Right.
But when we're in sync, which is most of the time, it's fun to write together and relate,
Sure.
Crazy things happen to two people with chronic illness. So
oh gosh. Yeah. So, so from the blogging and stuff, so then that got you into the MS community more. And from there, sharing your stories and that. So one of the things I wanted to know about is about, as far as, I love this part that you took to caregiving, priorities, #discipline and coffee. I love that in the middle of it. That is things that I definitely agree. I have to write down my priorities for sure, or I'm all over the place. I'm sure you guys relate to that. All of a sudden it's Sunday night and I haven't written down anything. I'm like, I have to write down stuff for tomorrow. Monday will be here and I'll be like, I'm lost. I need those written down. And coffee.
Yes.
And I did not drink coffee until I met Dan.
Okay.
And I don't want to say that in a bad way, but that is one thing that we share in common. And I know a lot of people with MS, because of bladder difficulties and caffeine, they don't drink coffee, but it seems to work for us.
Yeah. I still have bladder issues, but I will not give up coffee. I'll do all the things they tell me, like this much, stop at this time. I'm like, okay, but just don't tell me no coffee. Just don't say that to me.
That's a life we don't want to live.
Right. No. So I love that. And I just want to know, like, so when you guys are like, give me a normal day in the home, in your home. What does a normal day look like?
I think it's seeing how long we can push the alarm, reset the alarm.
So
it's
you
like,
guys are a snoozer. That's my husband. And I can't do that, because if I snooze, I'm like, I have to get up right now. I can't snooze.
We need to pull some of that energy, but so much depends on the day. I mean, if we have to get up and go to church, that's just how it is. I mean, I work remotely, so I work from home, and the place where I work is located in Central Time Zone. So technically I do not have to be to work until 9:00 Eastern Time. So it's like, how much can I push it? And but so then once we wake up, then it's just like getting, we get ready for the day, because her caregiver comes at 9.
Okay.
So then I go to work, and I mean that I'm really surprised at how much and how easy it is to work from home. But it's like, so I mean, I work all day, I'm back in the office. I come out for more coffee or to, but I have to help Jennifer in the restroom. So anytime she has to go, I have to help with transfers and stuff. So I always call them my coworkers, and you go
Yeah.
to water cooler talk and stuff. But yeah, it's like I work, and that's the thing. It's like, not that I'm opposed to shopping and laundry and cooking and
Right.
things, but I don't have to worry about that. I mean, she takes care of all that. So
So
And
you're
it's
able to do all the cooking and stuff like that.
with the help of my caregiver, Jen,
Okay. And
and we
she's
do
there with
that.
you all day?
Yes.
Okay.
Fortunately, she's with me from the morning until the afternoon.
That's
And we do,
wonderful.
yeah. And because technically, Kathy, I could be considered someone who would need help of like an assisted living facility, or
Mhm.
because my MS is secondary progressive and it's to the point where I need help with simple activities of daily living.
Right.
And it's a lot to put all on Dan's shoulders. And that's why
Sure.
we're especially lucky. But we have days like any other couple where we stay up entirely too late watching football, for example,
I
or
don't know
we,
anything about that.
or we just like take it easy and lay in bed and just,
Sure.
you know, but I think, we try and get activity. We're really lucky that CMU, Central Michigan, is here in the physical therapy department.
Oh yeah.
Very involved in the wellness of our lives with
Yeah.
exercise and with multiple sclerosis. So we have been involved in a program for the last few weeks, and honestly, probably the last few years, we've gotten exercise with CMU.
Good.
And so that's important. And
You're not just telling me that because you know who I am. You're not just trying to flatter me.
I was
no.
in my
I'm
standing
just
frame
teasing.
today. I don't know if I've talked about the standing frame, but
No.
that's a piece of equipment that I can get in and it cranks me up into standing. And I
Mhm.
can stand for 20, 25 minutes
Yeah.
about 3 times a week. And Dan,
Mhm.
he gets exercise
Yeah.
lifting, transferring me, but he's also
Sure.
walking. And
Yeah.
so I
And
think
that's great. Thank you for sharing that, because I know a lot of people don't know what that is.
no, and it's a piece of equipment. If you want,
Mhm.
I can send you a link,
Sure.
just because it's pretty amazing. It's
Yeah.
it's expensive, and I was lucky to buy a
Yeah.
used one. But if you can find equipment like that
Yeah.
used, it's really valuable. You know
I
how
always look for that stuff so I can bring it into my studio, because as I've transferred, as I'm sure you guys have heard, from having a gym and then transfer kind of made it into where I can do my autoimmune, my MS client, just getting more equipment that we need. And so it is it's just been really exciting and rewarding to be able to do that. It is incredibly fascinating to watch every level, not just the relapsing remitting, but the secondary, just to watch, a foot lift or something like that. And it's just very, very exciting. And the energy, and it seems so, they're like, how does that make sense? I'm going to exercise and have more energy. This doesn't even make sense. And yet you do.
you do. And it is something with Dan, you can see when he's working, and he's really conscious of taking
Yeah.
better steps, and before you know it, his steps look better, and when
Yeah.
he's tired, he's not dragging as
Right.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, and I think too, just as simple as, about a standing desk,
Right.
and then it's like just the importance of that, just standing and getting up. And so you're
Right.
not sitting, and that's what I love about, with Jennifer's standing frame. It's just like, just to
Right.
get weight bearing and just doing
Gosh,
things,
yeah. So
stretching the
good
legs.
for your back, your hips, your legs. I mean, our hips get so sore. And so often our MSers don't know why, and they're not told why. And then it's, all of a sudden they've just got these incredibly sore areas of their body. And yeah, it's a real frustration. So when you're talking about, going to legislation and stuff, that word didn't come out. I'm working with an attorney now, battling that for things that we're talking about, like physical therapy, but they want us to exercise. So people like me I've gone through all of the training, and I'm there to work out with autoimmune and MS. It's like, that's not covered. but it's covered. So it's a very frustrating thing. And a lot of my clients get really frustrated. So that is my battle right now with is to get that covered because it needs to be. And it's just it's a big frustration that you know, that we work so hard to help and to be able to do this. And it's like you try to go as low as you can because we all know how expensive it is to live like we live. And then to have it not covered by insurance just makes no sense. So that's one of the big battles that I'm doing right now with some others. So.
And it would be better as a society if we were more proactive than reactive.
Yeah.
We would just start as soon. And that's one thing, having been diagnosed for 25 years. I wish I realized how important it was to continue exercising and walk as much as you can. And that sounds counterintuitive to tell someone to keep walking, but
good for you. You got the word I couldn't find. Counterintuitive. I was like, I can't find that word right now.
No, but it shipped up here. But just to stay active, and Dan does so much. Right. And I think that's how it's really helped us.
Yeah, most definitely. For sure. So I love that. Now tell me, we're going to move a little bit. Tell me about the book that you guys helped write. Tell me about your book.
We had written a book, and it's something, because it was always a goal, you know, as a writer, you're always like, I want to write a book. I'm going to write a book. And we had a woman who had been a professor at Central Michigan University, had heard of our story, and she wanted to include us in her book. And as we were talking about things, and she was just like, you need to write a book. And, you know, and she gave us the insight and stuff. So it was a collection of essays, you know, of things that we've written, which I liked, because I want to write a book that a person could just pick up and jump in at any point in the book. You wouldn't need to have a whole novel. And so we created that. And that's been around. I think we did that like 12 years ago.
Okay. And it's called Despite MS to Spite MS.
Correct. Right. And so it's just a collection of our personal essays. And so then, you know, that took a lot of work to do a book, print it and everything. And then the marketing and selling and push promoting. But I think then after we did that, and you just remember how much work it was. And now it's like, you want to write another one, but we wanted to write another one for probably 10 years. And it's just like, but then I think just everything got so much more busy. So we haven't, I mean, it's out of print now. And we're just like, do we want to print more? And we're just like, let's just take a break because we need to make fresh stuff. But that was,
so you can't get it anymore. Okay.
And I think, you know, there's maybe somewhere within Amazon where people are selling used copies.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just didn't. I think there might be some knockoff unofficial ebooks out there where people are just done it. And I think it's just to get the stories out there, just to help people.
It'd be great if you wrote another book and then you could have it in audio too, like an Audible. So like those who can't see so well.
That exactly, because that's the one thing is like the audio books are so smart and so
I kept telling Tyler Campbell, get the audio, get it on Audible. So it is now. I'm like, now I got it. So because I can't see. So I can only see with this eye, which I thought, joking, it was perfect until I went to the ophthalmologist. I'm like, well, this eye, you know, it's the same. I can't see out of it, but this eye is my winner. And he's like, not so much. I'm like, wow. Darn it. So I would encourage you.
If we get that fire lit under us and we do an Audible book, Kathy, we will give you credits.
We'll give it. I was going to say, well,
good. I love that. Thank you.
Well, and I think that's just it. I mean, because Tyler Campbell has just such an incredible story, incredible voice, incredible articles. And that's the beauty of, you know, I'm glad that he did an audio book.
Me too.
He recorded it because I always feel audio books are so much more authentic when the author is the one
Agree.
doing it. So
Because when that's your only, and you love reading has been such a big part of my life. And when it was stolen, like so many things in our MS walk is taken from us. And I was like, not reading. I remember trying to read with an ice pack on this eye and just trying to read and as much as I could. And it was finally like, it's just not going to work no matter what I do. And so, Audible was it for me. And when it's a bad voice and it's not the author, it's like, and so it just is really special when you find one, it's the author. And so it's just a really, really fun, just really important to us, the ones who can't read. So I encourage you to do that because we want to know your story. I mean, it's important. It's uplifting for us. And what you guys have is very unusual. And it's something that it is very uplifting. And I think it's important to know like what you guys have done, what you've gone through. And we want to know the struggles and the exciting parts and the fun parts. And we want to know everything. So having that to read those are always, especially I think to all of the groups, as you well know, you've led groups, as have I. So that there's, I'm doing one coming up with just singles and talking about what it's like to be single and have this disease and the challenges with that. And that I'm sure you've heard this several times as you age, am I going to be alone forever? Now, is this it? And just really talking about that and talking about the fears of that and the questions. And so I think that stories like yours, I'd love to have you guys write another one. I'm not pushing or anything.
No, but thank you.
but sometimes it's just like the encouragement. It's just like, okay, well, there is value in this, and it's not. So thank you.
For sure.
You need
Absolutely.
a gentle nudge. So thank you.
Yes, a little gentle nudge.